Raising up our voice for unity. Here in the now, I am hearing the now as I listen, and I listen, and I listen. The sound that goes on, Can you hear now? In the here and now, and you hear that the song of the earth should be singing in the side, in the circle around with the sound that carries the ancient memory constantly, gracefully. Calling us to heal now, stewards are we from the inner world to the world we see. Raising up our voice for unity. Here in the now, I am hearing the now as I listen, and 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 I listen.
Greetings Internet, Zero Soul here, and this is a video I'm going to cover some disturbing material in, but also some really exciting and uplifting material all around the topic of what we call veganism, or you might call it choosing to live without causing suffering. I just watched the documentary that's put out every year. It's updated every year. This one's called Vegan 2018. I think the first one I watched was Vegan 2016, and I'm not sure if I saw 2017, but anyway, they're all good, and just wanted to show you some of what's contained in this. It's really worth watching, and I think anybody really with an open mind should get something from this. I know there's lots of people who are anti-vegan who have bought into the idea that people who radically choose not to harm animals somehow are dangerous. The problem we have is a huge epidemic of denial, and even denial is a challenging conversation with some people, because they will deny denial. They will deny that denial even exists. They will deny all kinds of things, and the conversation just falls apart. But basically, people who, and I count myself as one of these people for quite a long time when I was younger, people who have been involved in exploiting animals via their diet and from eating meat or dead animals, as you might call them, or using dairy products, which are basically the milk, stolen milk really from cows mainly. If you've been involved in that, from my perspective, the only possible way you can be involved in that is because you're denying something. And people say, oh, my body just can't survive without meat and dairy, but that's not biologically true. You might have issues and you might need to adapt, but from my perspective, I've never seen it proven that a single person anywhere has to have these things. I thought I needed them, but I was wrong, and that's the same probably for pretty much most of the people who have become vegan. So, but often when you start to talk to people about this who aren't really ready for it, don't want to hear it, don't want to understand their own involvement in the evil of the animal exploitation industries called meat and dairy, and on top of that, the fact that we've normalised it as a society, so that when they grew up as children and their parents and grandparents and all these other adults told them that, you know, in fact they only ever saw them eating meat and they just thought it was normal, to realise that that isn't really healthy at all, scientifically or spiritually or anything, and is actually destructive, is quite a challenge to realise that. And many people's minds have been very closed off and locked down for a long time, so they're not used to change, they resist it, they'll even get triggered into anger and violence when all they're presented with is, I mean, even in cases where all they're presented with is scientific data and actual published peer-reviewed material, they'll actually then become angry and try and claim that this is all some big move to control them, or it's all lies or whatever it is. But I mean, you know, I've never once seen anybody present coherent evidence to demonstrate that the scientific data on veganism and the diet and the medical testimony and the many individual testimonies, that those are wrong. I mean, there might be aspects that have errors in them for X, Y, Z reason, but the general premise, general message, as far as I'm concerned, is completely correct. I have not a single doubt in me. So videos like this, Vegan, which I'm going to show you shortly some clips from it, Vegan 2018, are really good. They help explain numerous factors and points regarding animal exploitation, diet, nutrition, which people generally don't get to see, and you'll get to see some very moving things in this. Lots of activists really dedicating themselves to live from their heart and to spread the message of veganism, and to actually educate people about the harsh reality of the animal torture, basically, that is happening moment by moment by moment on the levels of billions, if not trillions, of animals around the planet, just so that, for no real reason basically, so that other than that people can become rich through doing it, and because people who buy the products think they need the food, or because they just like the taste and they're just lazy basically and haven't really considered that there's other options. I feel like when I say people are lazy or things like that, I feel like, oh, that's going to put people off. They're not going to listen to me now. Some people, oh, these judgmental vegans. Not really. It's just, to me, it's a statement of fact. If we class laziness as being, let's say, choosing not to go as deeply as you could do and perhaps should do into certain topics to gain a deep understanding, so that the logic that you're using and the thoughts that you have are actually grounded in reality and fact rather than just what you happen to prefer. That's kind of, to me, it's not unreasonable to call that laziness, and I think that's really what most of these anti-vegan type people have been, how they are. It's how I was. It's not like I'm judging them and saying, oh, I'm better than you. I was there as well for most of my life. Many people have very stuck belief systems regarding this, and I really would hope that more people will watch this documentary and others like it, so that they will actually start to be able to open up and think a little bit differently. So I've got the video up here. I'm just going to start playing it on a low volume to start with.
An ethical awareness around as more and more people began to speak out.
Why do we rarely hear climate change campaigns targeting the animal agriculture industry? Let's follow the money.
And who funded
per
that study?
day. But that was an Iran. It wasn't funded by industry.
That was an egg industry-funded study.
The disproportion between that little bit of extra pleasure you might get from eating meat and the phenomenal amount of destruction required to produce it should surely commend it to anyone as a stupid thing to do.
What do you think is the biggest misconception about a vegan diet?
The biggest misconception is everyone says, where do you get your protein?
And I've had a long-term health condition, and I've seen a dramatic shift in my health in the last 12 days.
It's recognized again by the American insurance industry that there's only 2 dietary plans that can reverse heart disease. There's no meat in those programs. They're plant-based programs.
Right, so we've seen there, that's some clips from last year's documentary. Just want to put a quick comment in and basically say, when it comes to vegan activism or education or outreach, and the vegan community in general, there's a weird sort of split between people who became vegan to protect animals and those who came to it through wanting to live healthier for themselves. And obviously there's people who came to it for doing both. I came to it for doing both. I have noted, at first I didn't realise that there was this split in the community basically. I kind of thought, well, as long as you're vegan, it doesn't really matter too much how you came to be there. The point is your actions are of a kind which are going to be serving you and humanity and the whole planet. I don't really care how you came to get there. But it turns out a lot of people are actually so kind of angry about the way animals have been treated that even for vegans, even vegans who basically are fully vegan and now maybe even totally committed to even activism for animals, if they say they got there because of reasons of health, then sometimes they get some flack for that. I think it's very important for people to kind of align themselves in a more productive direction and realise that their frustration and anger is best directed towards the people continuing the exploitation of animals. That's just my 2 cents on that. But so yeah, I mean, there's footage in here from news stories, very many interesting news stories regarding the extent to which veganism and a meat-free diet has spread across the world. I know that Britain apparently now is up to 33% non-meat eating, which is pretty amazing. When I started out, I don't know what the figure was, but I think it was less than 5% from my experience. It was very hard to put. There weren't really hardly any vegan products in supermarkets, very few, apart from obviously fresh whole food produce. But in terms of actual, not that I would recommend processed foods, but most people do seem to buy processed foods. I buy them from time to time for convenience. But they hardly existed really. Whereas now, if you go into even mainstream supermarkets, you're going to see a wide variety of different products in there that really are quite new. And in fact, later on in this documentary, they cover some of how that came to be and mentioned that there was, for example, one large investment body. I think it says something like they had $8 trillion or something like that to invest, and they got fully behind vegan food and put pressure on supermarkets to actually sell more, which I didn't know about. I mean, that to me is amazing. It makes me want to cry if that's true. It really actually makes me want to cry because it's kind of those two worlds, the kind of financial world, which I personally see as being hugely part of the exploitation of animals and humans, To see that actually being involved in turning everything around really is something I never expected to see. So, you know, if that's true, and I don't know that it is true, but if it's true, then that's very, very uplifting for me. So I'm just going to play some more clips. I'm not stopping on any particular point in this video. I'm just literally going at random because I can talk about all of it and it's all interesting.
This film shares 2018's story behind the changing conversation.
For me, I want to bring a message, which is veganism, and that there doesn't have to be torture in fabulous fashion.
2018, this next year, is our year. Like, it's the year we go mainstream.
So what we're definitely seeing for 2018, the theme overall is plant-based eating.
Have faith that there are doctors, that there are lawyers, that there are people out there who are also embracing this.
As people use digital technology more than ever, the lies created by powerful industries were revealed, and the shape-shifting began.
What's for dinner? What's for dinner? Steroid-injected minced cow bollock, courtesy of the farming industry, tearing up rainforests to plant animal feed.
I have slowly and reluctantly come to the conclusion that as it stands now, honest doctors can no longer practice honest medicine. We have a complete healthcare system failure.
We are contemplating an agricultural crisis, an ecological crisis, as well as the climate breakdown crisis, and it's being driven by the food that we eat and the way that it's produced.
So I have mixed feelings when I watch this. It's great to see this being covered more widely. I also feel that kind of revulsion that I was actually talking about earlier on with regards to some people in the vegan community. Not for exactly the same reason, but because when I started this out, and obviously people for decades before me too, our environment was one where the mainstream media was completely the opposite to what we're seeing in this video. And the shiny kind of Hollywood angle on things, you'd never hear anyone speaking up for this kind of thing. It would just be, you know, they might think it in private, but they would never talk about it. And it's good that they're able to talk about it now, but I just really don't like the sort of I see this sort of celebrity takeover of subjects like this to be a little bit like exploitation of humanity. Just like vegans get annoyed with exploitation of animals, I get frustrated also equally with exploitation of humans. And to me, I mean, I don't class myself as above animals. To me, they're my family. Basically, we're all one. So any exploitation is a problem, basically, for me. And I just feel like the celebrity, it's just so well known that lots of celebrities will say whatever they think needs to be said in order to be, you know, more popular, basically. I just don't like that, especially when there's so many excellent, intelligent, warm-hearted, passionate people who are articulate and able to talk about these subjects, who don't get the coverage that they deserve, basically. And thankfully, a lot of them are in this video. At least some good ones. I guess I would just say, you know, I understand why they put the celebrities in this video, because they're helping to spread the news that veganism is becoming more popularly accepted. And unfortunately, it is true that lots of people will just do what celebrities tell them to do. So it's intelligent to put that stuff in here from a certain perspective. It just riles me a little bit. That's all.
If you think about PETA and environmentalist groups, veganism, they're all able to exist now in 2018 because of the meat eaters of the past who built this amazing civilization that allows unfocused adults to chase their fringe causes.
What do you mean it's not? People eat meat just stupid. Not eat meat. That's just stupid. It's not a real thing.
Why is it stupid?
Because everybody likes meat. How would you know unless you ate? Who can't eat a good piece of bacon?
And you
So it's so sad to see people with obviously limited intellect calling other people stupid. It's kind of, I don't really cringe, but it's kind of it's just sad. When someone says it's stupid to not eat meat, it's not a thing. Well, yeah, it is. I mean, lots of people don't eat meat. And then when you're asked why is it stupid, to say, well, who doesn't like it? Everyone likes it. Well, do you speak for 8 billion people? I don't think you do. And right now you're incoherently babbling and not making any sense. So that, unfortunately, is the extent of the argument a lot of the time. I mean, he's obviously an extreme example, but if we go back to the other argument made there, claiming that the vegans only are able to live as they do now because meat eaters somehow created the free environment to allow them to do that is one of the most, just frankly, retarded things I've ever heard. I mean, I know that there are arguments set forward by alleged serious, let's say, scientists or researchers, historians, that say that they paint the picture that basically says, oh, we've proven that the brain only developed because of eating meat, and basically humanity really only survives because of eating meat. I don't agree with that at all, and I've never seen any real substantial evidence to prove that. I have looked, don't get me wrong, and I'm not saying I've seen all the evidence there is, and I'm not saying that eating meat has no potential benefit for a body. Meat or dead animal bodies basically are, let's call them a focus of nutrition absorbed as a result of them hoovering up nutrition from the landscape, right? In other words, they go around eating lots and lots and lots of plants in general, and then concentrate that into their body, and then when you eat their body, you get the super benefit in a sense of that. But that doesn't mean to say that it's the best thing for you to eat. And it really, in a way, if you think about it, you're lazily and conveniently allowing another being to do your hard work so that you don't have to go out into the environment and pick up plants, basically is what it comes down to. And the argument that approach is actually nutritionally superior doesn't tally up with scientific evidence at all. It doesn't tally up with my personal experience. It doesn't tally up really with anybody that I know who I know well enough to know the actual outcomes of their health who's gone one way or the other. It's a very important subject to understand, and I think to try to claim that the freedom for people to eat as they choose today is based on the actions of meat eaters is a bit. It's very similar actually. It's like predator logic. It's and basically like abuser logic. It's the same kind of logic that says killing 1 million innocent people and children and women in Iraq with depleted uranium shells and all other manner of horrible weapons of long-term torture and destruction. That was done so that you could be free, and so that you could choose to do whatever you want to do. So that's a get-out clause, which basically says, if you disagree with us for what we do in the military, you're bad and wrong and should be ashamed, because you're only free to say those things because we defended you. In reality, that's not even remotely close to being true. At no point was I threatened by anyone in Iraq. I don't even for a moment think there was any threat from Iraq. And all of the evidence really that's come out since then shows that there was no threat from Iraq. And in fact, many Iraqis liked American and Western concepts and really wanted to be more Western. So this bullshit, basic denial, heartless scumbaggery that tries to turn everything around and says, actually, you wouldn't be where you were without people that you hate, it's ridiculous. First of all, there's nothing wrong with hating. Hating is only extreme dislike. If you erase dislike from your experience, then you remove your ability to improve reality, basically. If you somehow magically only like things or are neutral to things, then all of the problems in life will never get solved. Negativity is the mother of evolution. This is something that positive thinkers need to understand quite importantly, I would say. Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with being passionate about a subject. There's nothing wrong with channeling that passion in a way that's open-hearted and open-minded, that has the intention of getting to the truth. And I don't see that happening in meat eaters when they try to sort of speak in an anti-vegan way. What I tend to see instead is a defense mechanism, basically, which is intent on pulling out some of the most ridiculous things that human beings ever said as a way to try to make themselves sound right, because they can't accept being wrong, and their brain literally can't process being wrong. So it's just like, well, if I say that now that I was mistaken about these things, then all this stuff that I've been saying for years, I'll look like a fool, and I can't allow that to happen. So it's easier for me to try and make the other people look like a fool. That's basically how I see it. I'm not really trying to make these people look like fools, because from my perspective, they do a good enough job on their own.
Say that people who are on vegan diets are malnourished, and people who are malnourished are more likely to commit crimes.
Presumably you're not.
People who are on vegan diets are more likely to be malnourished and more likely to commit crimes. Really? So, all right. I don't know whether statistically people who are malnourished are more likely to commit crimes, but let's let's ignore the fact that a significant amount of crime gets committed by very rich people and doesn't really get very well reported or prosecuted. Let's set that aside, like the massive financial fraud and so on. But let's just look at basic sort of street crimes. It's quite possible that undernourished people do commit more crime because they're undernourished and they feel that if they don't do something to solve that problem, they're probably going to die, right? And I mean, yeah, it's not good to go and mug people and commit crime. I'm not saying it is, but at the same time, it's not exactly beyond the realms of imagination to consider that possibly it's more the collective society's responsibility for people being malnourished than any one individual's. I would say, since we share the land and share the capacity to produce food, maybe collectively through our informed decisions we should be making smarter decisions so that we have more food available so that there aren't malnourished people. Point one. Point two, veganism does not result in malnourishment. It may result in malnourishment in people who don't understand how to eat a vegan diet, because they, just like it could happen in a meat eater's diet if they don't really pay attention to what they're eating. It's certainly possible for meat eaters, and it is the case that most meat eaters are deficient in fibre, for example, giving them serious gastrointestinal problems over time. And so this claim is just nonsense, basically. In terms of the kind of deficiencies people might see as a vegan, there are several that it is possible to experience, B12 being a well-known one, which is a very complicated subject, and I'm not going to get into all of that, but calcium and other things like that is possible to be deficient as a result of a vegan diet, but not if you pay attention to what you're eating, and really that applies to everybody. So it's just a joke, really, what that clip was showing.
Going out and collecting your own nuts and seeds and plants, are you?
No, and so I think...
Who's killing those plants? Seriously? Who's killing all those plants?
Well,
Who's killing all the plants? Well, Biology 101. This is what these people... It's so sad that they're so ignorant, and unfortunately, I don't even have the words for it, really. It's just, it makes me want to cry that people are so ignorant. Basic biology, right? Seeds, plants produce seeds. When you eat food from food-bearing plants, you tend to also eat the seeds. Your body doesn't digest the seeds typically, so if you were to go out into nature and poop them in nature like we're meant to be doing, before we got disconnected from nature, thinking that somehow we were superior to nature, whereas actually we're actually part of nature. If you were to live as nature intended, then the act of you eating food from a food-bearing plant would result in more plants, because your poop would contain seeds and that would then produce more plants. So the actual act of eating food from a food-bearing plant produces more life, doesn't kill anything. The problem comes in a way in that we don't differentiate between food-bearing plants and other plants. And I don't know hardly any vegans that I mean, to be honest, I'm the only one who ever even heard talk about this, but to me it's obvious. If you've got a choice between eating plants where you're going to kill them as a result of eating them, and you've got food-bearing plants, i.e. plants that produce food like tomatoes, fruits, vegetables, some vegetables, where you can actually take the seed or fruit aspect of the plant and eat it and gain nutrition without killing the plant, then you've got two distinctly different options there. You've got one path where you're killing things and one path where you aren't. So this whole argument of hypocrisy regarding the vegan lifestyle, whereby it's claimed that that vegans are hypocritical because they're killing plants and telling meat eaters not to kill animals, can be actually ended, I'm pretty sure, although it might not be easy to do it, but I'm pretty sure it can be ended by mainly eating the plants that produce food that are meant to be consumed and not killing the plant. Just my idea, just the concept, but the fact that that's actually an option clearly makes, in terms of morality and ethics, clearly makes the vegan option superior to the meat eating option, because there is no version of that for meat eating. There is no version where you can just go up to a cow and carve off a piece of it and then the cow will be fine, right? You know, you do that, you're causing direct harm, pain, suffering, and it's not going to be too long probably before the cow dies anyway. It's just obvious. But these people, I mean, it's just so sad that these people are on TV, you know, and actually getting well paid to talk absolute shite.
Collecting them because you make the point about no pain.
The face just says it all.
The anti-vegan backlash continued when iconic cooking show Great British Bake Off announced it was going vegan for a week, with some unable to hide their fury on social media, boycotting the show on principle. Vegans were branded demons at meat industry conferences, senior editors made jokes about killing vegans, and the rhetoric on mainstream media became weaker and even irrelevant.
Now, if you look at
avocados, for example, which many vegans consume, and we're now consuming 6 times the number of avocados here in the West than 5 years ago even. You know, the Mexican rainforest is being completely destroyed.
But is it possible that the vegans and the vegetarians have gotten hold of the agriculture department and infiltrated it, so to speak, and are pushing a meatless menu on the rest of the world?
Americans eat 2 times as much meat as anybody else in the world. Well, that's because we win all the world wars, Mom. We gotta go. We're undefeated.
You don't need cows.
That I don't know exactly what the logic was that guy was coming up with when he tried to make that hilarious joke, but that sort of logic actually, I mean, he might have been being sarcastic, but that kind of logic literally is the kind of logic that people actually have. That predator kind of logic, which basically says we eat all the meat because we win things and the winners eat the meat. I mean, this is a program which is so unenlightened and so retarded that I can't even believe that people think that it's something to be shouting about.
Other supermarkets began to position plant-based products in the meat aisle. The meat analogue industry quickly attracted high-profile investors such as one of Asia's richest men, Li Ka-shing, Bill Gates, and Leonardo DiCaprio, among others, as influencers around the world became increasingly aware of the impact of animal agriculture.
The scale of the impact, of the environmental impact of animal agriculture is really hard to appreciate. It blows almost everything else out of the water.
It's responsible for more greenhouse gas emissions than all planes, cars, trains, and other transportation combined.
That is really shocking when you read that. Above the fossil fuel industry.
It takes at least 10 times as much energy and resources to make a pound of animal protein as it does for plant-based protein.
We cannot continue to sustain our population on the level of meat consumption that we are without having something change.
And what we've heard now is that we need to keep it below 1.5 degrees.
So climate change, obviously very controversial. Not going to get into that. It's a massive subject. Not going to get into it deeply, but I just want to say this statistic that says that animal agriculture produces more greenhouse gases than cars and all these other things, as far as I know, that's true. I mean, how am I going to prove that from here? You know, it's difficult, but certainly the statistics and data and calculations I've seen make me think that that is correct. Whether or not that's actually having an effect on the climate as claimed, that's debatable. I'm not going to comment on that. But from my perspective, although it's good to know that stopping eating animals will have such a potentially beneficial effect on the environment, we don't need that argument to motivate us to stop eating animals. There are enough other reasons already. And, you know, the more arguments and more reasons we have for doing it, the better. But at the same time, you know, it's superfluous from my perspective.
And he is like, this tastes like a regular burger to me.
I don't know everything else on this thing, but the burger itself, what do you think?
So they're talking here about synthetic or soya-based meats and so on, which are getting a lot better, it has to be said. Not that I particularly am interested in trying desperately to replace meats with meat-tasting things, but if you're fully used to eating those kind of tastes and foods, then it's definitely going to be a lot easier for you to transition to being vegan, being able to eat these things, because basically you're not even going to feel like you're missing out on anything.
We spend more money in this country than any other country in the world on healthcare, and we don't have better outcomes. So somebody has to stop and say, what is going on here?
What is going on here? Well, you've got a culture created by predators for predators. That's what's happened. So the people have been farmed themselves on every possible level in every possible way. So the movie The Matrix wasn't really such a sci-fi story as people may have thought. It's really based actually on what's actually happening. It's just set in a backdrop of fiction. I just want to get to this older lady because she sticks out in my memory.
I think the most important message that I have is to remember that you, and I'm speaking to you watching this film, you make a difference. You as an individual make a difference. What you do each day actually is affecting what's going on in the world each day. So your life matters, you matter, and use your life wisely.
Absolutely, perfectly said.
We're going to pack up. Okay, pack up all the sides, pack up all the food, pack up all the tables, take it all to the car. Okay, and about 15 minutes we're going to hang out near the cars. Alright, and then we'll come back. Okay, so then what they probably will do is radio through to the trucks. Apparently there's some trucks being held back.
So there's lots of activists where I live, very strong culture,
and yeah, try
and
to trick us, we'll trick them.
they're absolutely
An increasing number
priceless
of people engaged
for
in
humanity.
activism, shining a light on standard practices within industry, by either waiting outside slaughterhouses to bear witness to the animals facing death, raiding slaughterhouses themselves, making videos on the kill floor, or partaking in cubes of truth.
NBC6 anchor Trina Robinson joins us tonight with more on this new group that you may have seen in protests around the area. Trina.
Yeah, the group is called Anonymous for the Voiceless. They want people to think about the rights of animals and where their food comes from.
Are you a dairy farmer, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Do you own a dairy farm now?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So what is it?
I decided, well, you gotta be very, very careful what you're doing here.
Why that?
No, you gotta be very careful. You could ruin our industry.
If we can't face the reality, how can you morally justify paying for it to continue? What about the choice of the animals who have a preference to live their life? You see, we can eat other things. It's not a necessity for us to eat animal products. We can survive and thrive on a plant-based diet.
Often what people mean when they say it's their personal choice is that it's a free choice they're making. And they're not making their choices freely, because without awareness there is no free choice. And the vast majority of people are not aware of how they've been deeply conditioned.
Knowledge is...
Boom. Probably the most important quote in this whole video there. You can't make free choice if you aren't aware of what you're doing, basically. And that cuts the absolute core of pretty much everything. If I was to really, all of the healing work that I've done, all of the activism, all of the research over a long period of time, if I was to try to cut out one segment from it all that was probably the most important, I would say that's probably in the essence of it. Or it's not everything, but obviously, but it's so important. People have been conditioned and deceived in many cases to think that they're free when they aren't, and it's not just the absence of someone telling you what to do that makes you free. If you aren't consciously aware of the effects of your actions and of the choices that you have, then you can't be said to be choosing freely. You know, if you don't know where you're going down all these other paths, then the path that you choose, while you may think you've chosen it freely, in reality it wasn't completely free, because some of the options you had you simply weren't aware of, you didn't take them. I mean, it's a huge subject, but this is why videos like this are so important, and why supermarkets selling more vegan food and so on is so important, because I know for sure, 100% certain, that if I had known this information when I was a child, I probably would have been vegan my whole life, right? And it's just that when I was a child, I don't even know if I knew the word vegan, basically. It just wasn't in our vocabulary. There was no movement for it that I knew of. I would occasionally see activists in the town centre where I lived or something like that for animal welfare, but you know, we didn't stop and talk to them. I didn't really know exactly what they were doing. They weren't really so smooth and able to articulate what was happening as people are now. That we've come a long way, basically, thanks in no small part to the internet increasing our ability to communicate. It's actually, I would say, woken up some of our brains to our capacity to communicate, and our hearts as well, to be able to do that. So yeah, it's so important to get this information out, and I really would like to see more of this kind of information shown in schools. If you have the ability to make that happen on any level whatsoever and get more children to see this, even just this documentary, I think you should be able to find that you should be able to sleep a bit easier after doing that, because you literally will have helped the future of the whole planet.
Transport hubs and buildings with ads that said oat milk is like milk but made for human.
Excellent point again. Dairy milk and cow milk is for cows, unsurprisingly. It's designed to make small cows big cows in a short space of time. It's not designed for human beings. And the lies that we've been fed for a long time that say that you need cow milk for health actually is completely false, and actually dairy milk and meat both are responsible for some of the major epidemics of health problems that we have on this planet, in no small amount.
Have dramatic transformations.
Plant-based athletes from a wide range of sports claimed podium positions in various competitions, from world-class surfer Tia Blanco to powerlifter Julia Trezise-Conroy and ultra-runner Vlad Ixel, as well as many others who also achieved stunning successes.
Makes a move on Raikkonen, gives him a little nudge towards the right-hand side. Hamilton moves in
into the lead in the Italian Grand Prix.
As more and more influencers adopted a plant-based diet, businesses were starting to see how they could cash in on the movement.
Plant-based diet. Logo? Now my logo.
Nike promoted the plant-based lifestyle. Stella McCartney made trainer history when she launched a vegan version of Adidas's iconic Stan Smith shoe. And other fashion brands became increasingly aware of consumer demands for animal-free clothing and accessories. While luxury fashion houses like Gucci and Michael Kors started ditching fur in 2017, even more names followed suit in 2018, including Bellstaff, Burberry, John Galliano and Versace.
Versace, for so long, you know, they were leaders in the fur industry, and for Donatella Versace to literally come out and say, you know what, I'm done with that. We're winning.
For the first time ever, the catwalks of London Fashion Week were completely fur-free, prompting calls for other cities to follow suit.
So I think that's really amazing that these companies have stopped using fur. I think it's high time. It's amazing in a way that also that they hadn't done it sooner, but just, you know, I can't say anything bad about that. All I will say is that it comes back to the subject I brought up earlier on of corporate exploitation of humans. As I said, I don't class animals and humans as being significantly different in that way. And Nike, I know, for example, basically they'll sell out. They'll do anything to get more marketing value. You know, if the world suddenly changed its mind from being vegan next week, they wouldn't be promoting veganism. I know that for sure. And you know, there's many clips, whistleblowers and so on, from Nike factories where they've basically you can see, for example, the amount of time that's been required of these workers to work on each tiny sub part of their job, and it's like less than half a second. They're literally measured. They have to do each task in ridiculously fast times, bang on, or they lose pay or get sacked. They're exploited a lot by Nike, and I don't like this company at all. But anyway, I do get a bit. I just want exploitation to end, basically, not just of animals but humans as well. And I do get a little bit frustrated when activists try to sort of use these corporations to further their agenda and say, look, it's all becoming acceptable, the world's turning to be vegan. That's great, it is great, but let's not like fail to notice that the companies involved are also heavily into exploitation in other ways, and that includes some of the big supermarkets. You know, it's great that supermarkets are selling vegan foods, but they're still selling all the other foods, right? They're all fully profiting from exploitation, and you know, let's be real, they're probably only doing it because they're going to make money out of it. They're not leaders of ideology. They're not there. They're not even there to help humans. Frankly, they're there just to make money. So, you know, if you decided next week that it was the pinnacle of evolution to wear a purple hat, then you know you can be sure that they would be there selling you purple hats, right? It's not because they think like you, particularly. So anyway. I think I've rabbited on enough here. Leave the rabbiting for the rabbits, and yeah, please do go and watch this video anyway and share it around. It's well worth the watch, and support the people that make it. Plant-based news, distributing it, regularly making excellent videos, and definitely you can learn a lot from these people. And yeah, so until next time, keep it real, and much love to all, and I'll see you soon.